This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and selling anything from products to content to time. All in one place, all on your terms. Hey Spuds, it's Jamie. Welcome back to another video. Fast on the channel. I don't know, but welcome either way. And today I'm very happy to be bringing you an episode of Good Trans Anatomy. This is things that are actual, like, accurate anatomy type things about trans people, but just also generally like positive, good trans stories and news, because we need as much of that as possible right now. This video is not for the negative stuff. That is for different content on a different day. Today we're here to talk anything from supportive Grammy speeches to accurate portrayals of trans people to trans positive bishops. Yeah, we love to see it. This is one of my favorite videos to make. Let's go. What to know about Marianne Boudet, the bishop who upset Trump with her inaugural sermon. Anybody who upsets Trump is good in my book. Apparently President Donald Trump is demanding an apology, but let's read what she did. What did Bishop Boudet and President Trump say? Let me make one final plea, Mr. President, the soft-spoken bishop said from the pulpit of Washington National Cathedral. I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now, she said. There are gay, lesbian and transgender children in Democratic, Republican and independent families, some who fear for their lives, Boudet preached. She said the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals, calling them good neighbors and faithful members of religious communities. What a badass move. This just goes to prove that religion and bigotry do not go hand in hand, and it is the people who are misusing religion and hiding behind some religious facade to be bigoted, and it's completely unnecessary, it's completely unwarranted, and it's completely disrespectful to lots of different types of people, including the ones they're being bigoted to. And I'm not trying to wash over the negative stuff that's happening right now. I will talk about those kind of topics in other content, but the one little silver lining and moment of hope to take from it is seeing these bits of love and support, people putting themselves out there to support the LGBT plus community, to support immigrants, to support people who are marginalized and who are just being shat upon even more right now, unfortunately. And it shows that there is so much love and support out there. It's just the wrong people are making the decisions and have the control right now, but that will not be the case forever. I was colorizing trans photos and it reminded me of star athlete Mark Weston, who transitioned in 1936. It's as if he was erased from the history books. He was one of the world's top athletes and Britain's #1 women's shot putter for 6 years. His brother Harry was also trans. 1936. These people saying it's a new fad and a new trend. Puh, what do they know? Nothing, and they don't want to know anything, and that's why they're so bigoted and closed-minded. But if you Google Mark Weston, he was an athlete born in 1905, one of the best British field athletes during the 1920s. Wow. Oh my god, and he got married and had 3 children. There is so much evidence and so many examples of trans people existing throughout history who have just been, there's been an attempt to erase them entirely. That no, we have to push this lie that it's a new trend and new thing and trans people haven't always existed, but trans people have always existed. And although 1936 wasn't the longest time ago that there is recorded history of trans people being people of this world and existing, it's still a hell of a long time ago. And I think it's really important to speak about people who transitioned all that time ago. While addressing the crowd, Pink promoted trans inclusivity. Pink praised by fans for trans inclusivity at Fire Aid concert. Decent human being. Pink 45 addressed ladies, gentlemen, and every gender that absolutely exists as she took to the stage at Fire Aid on Thursday, and fans praised her on social media. I believe that that would have in part been about Trump's whole like,
there are only 2 genders, male and female.
And then saying that it's decided at conception, technically meaning that everybody is female, because all fetuses start off female, technically. So yeah, bit of bad anatomy generally, but it is nice to see people and people with platforms supporting the trans community. And it's really important because right now, trans people and trans voices are not being listened to, not having that platform, not being given any respect or credibility. And it is the allies who actually have a voice and a platform. And it's so important for them to speak up, whether they're celebrities or whether they're not. Cis voices who are allies to the trans community are just being listened so much more than trans people. And preferably a lot of people would be like, yeah, and sticking up for any marginalized group. This isn't just trans people and trans allies. This is for anything, any LGBT plus, anything to do with race, to fight racism and anti-immigration laws, for people to stand up and support those people, from LGBT plus people to people who are immigrants, people to stand up for it who are not within those groups, where their voices are actually listened to and can have an impact. Her comments about gender were widely praised online as they came just weeks after Donald Trump returned to the White House and signed an executive order which threatens to deny transgender people the freedom to be themselves. The signed order states it It is the policy of the United States to recognize two sexes, male and female. These sexes are not changeable and are grounded in fundamental and incontrovertible reality. There are only two sexes, and then saying that this is grounded in fundamental and incontrovertible reality. Incontrovertible means not to be able to be denied or disputed. So that's just an opinion. You're just saying,
no, you cannot disagree with my opinion. How dare you?
In reality, actual reality, intersex people exist, and science and just the existence of trans people is evidence enough that trans people exist, but we also have facts and science on our side as well. So to say that there are only two sexes that will be recognized and this is the undisputable reality just makes whoever is saying that sound completely idiotic, completely stuck in primary school biology, because that's really how the president of the United States should basing his worldview on, primary school. Thailand allocates millions towards HRT for the trans community. Thailand's always had a reputation of being somewhere that a lot of trans people go to access gender affirming care. So in a historic move, Thailand's public health ministry has allocated 145.63 million baht, so that's £3 million, to the National Health Security Office to fund hormone replacement therapy, HRT, for 200,000 trans individuals. Life-changing, seriously. Deputy government spokesman Anukul Praksanasak, I'm really sorry if I pronounced the name wrong, emphasized the growing societal acceptance of diverse gender identities, noting that trans individuals may seek HRT as a step in their transition. He added that this allocation is a crucial step in addressing health disparities, aiming to provide comprehensive care to around 200,000 individuals. Beyond HRT, the National Health Security Office will extend a full range of medical and public health services, ensuring that transgender individuals receive the same level of care as the general population. This is such a crucial point because, yes, access to gender affirming care in various places from the world range from very difficult and lengthy to get to, but still accessible in the end, to just purely inaccessible depending on where you live and your demographic and how old you are and everything like that. But aside from trans-specific healthcare, trans people are often forgotten about in general healthcare settings as well. And so many doctors that don't specialize in trans healthcare have absolutely no idea how to treat a trans patient coming in for various things. And in the UK with the NHS, trans men, for example, will not automatically get reminders to go for certain health checkups if they've not had something like a hysterectomy or top surgery. There's not that connection that trans people still need to be included in general healthcare, and is why there was a big push, and there still should be this big push, to neutralize the language when we discuss healthcare on the top level. Not on an individual level. It doesn't mean that somebody going in who identifies as a woman is not going to be referred to as such, just because trans men can also experience the same thing she's going to the doctors for. But just on this top level of being like, you know, people with cervixes for cervical screening things, it's really important because general healthcare for trans people is also lacking in accessibility to healthcare, and understanding and empathetic doctors is also very lacking for trans people, even outside of trans-specific healthcare needs. These services include medical treatment, health promotion, disease prevention, rehabilitation, and the guarantee of equal access to healthcare for all. This is so important, and I want to see this everywhere. This development comes just days after Thailand became the first Southeast Asian country to legalize same-sex marriage, granting LGBTQIA+ couples the same financial, legal, and medical rights as heterosexual couples. In the wake of this landmark legislation, hundreds of LGBTQIA+ couples flocked to courthouses to register their marriages, marking a historic moment for equality in the country. Beautiful. I love this.
People are literally older than Jesus.
Yeah.
The Hijras are a group of people in India born male but take on female characteristics and roles. Their existence dates back all the way to 200 BC. That's before Christ.
Before Christ. Trans people are older than Jesus. That needs to be a slogan somewhere. Trans people are older than the religion that some people try and use as an excuse to be transphobic. Where's the lie? It's so bizarre because like when you look back across history, there's been fluctuating levels of acceptance towards LGBT plus people. I think this goes back to my point earlier about Mark Weston, who was a trans guy from the early 1900s. And this is even further, like way further back, like mind-blowingly further back, right? That trans people and people who sit outside of this concept of male and female and being cis have existed since before Christ. Before. And yet we are still in a situation where so many people are trying to deny that trans people exist. What? It's mind-baffling, honestly. I'm just jumping in here to say that despite this being a good trans anatomy and a good news video, I do have to share some sad news that has happened. My frog club club business that is totally weird and absolutely not made up that I spoke about earlier this month is having to come to an end. I know, devastating, but it's because Squarespace allowed me to have such an incredible website that we watched all the frogs and they caught onto us, getting highly suspicious. So until they come back out of hiding, I'm putting a pause on the frog watching club. I'm sure I'll be back with another idea very soon, but in the meantime, you should definitely take the leap and go see what amazing creation you can come up with yourself using Squarespace. Because Squarespace has a guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint, letting you choose from professionally curated layout and styling options to build your unique online space. You'll be jumping for joy because your website will be tailored to your business or website idea and optimized for every device. Once you've picked your layout, you can get customizing with Squarespace Asset Library, making it super easy to upload, organize, and access all the content you need for your site from one central hub, and then use them across the Squarespace platform. Another frogtastic feature of Squarespace is the commenting system. You can have like counts, you can thread comments, and there are great spam and abuse filters to keep you safe as you build your idea or business. Brilliant for a website with a blog. Charbonne's actual Squarespace website was super easy and fun to make and something we're really proud of. It's definitely here to stay. We use it to integrate our social media platforms, let you know a little bit about us and what we do, and share our podcast. So whatever your website idea, whether you're looking to build a community or you're an awesome entrepreneur, or if you want to start a club or blog of your own, Squarespace will be the webbing to your feet, letting you turn any idea into a website. That was not one of my better ones, sorry. To go grab this opportunity and get started yourself, go to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch off that lily pad, go to squarespace.com/Jammidodger to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. The link is in the description box. Now let's go back to the feel-good news of the good trans anatomy.
Are you familiar with when the first gender-affirming clinic that did transition surgeries existed?
I am not aware of when that existed.
Okay, I'll tell you. Have you ever heard of Magnus Hirschfeld?
I have not.
I'm going to guess that this is somebody who's like very pro-trans and trans supportive, arguing against a transphobe or somebody who's bigoted or closed-minded in some way towards the trans community, okay? I feel like this just highlights the fact that they literally don't even know the basic information and history of what they're trying to argue against. That's even more offensive than the fact that they're bigoted in the first place, because it's so baseless and it's so lacking in knowledge. It's just like you're just parroting stuff that you've heard from somebody else and actually impacting real people's lives when you don't know the first thing about what you're talking about. Just rude.
Magnus Hirschfeld, the Hirschfeld Clinic in 1930, was the first trans clinic. They performed surgeries. It was a safe place for trans and LGBTQ folks to come and be there. Do you know what happened after they built a medical library of information researching the complexities of sexuality and human gender?
I don't know what happened.
It was the first Nazi book burning, when they burned the entire library, saying that it was sexually explicit material, and then executed half the people involved. Because first they came for the trans kids.
Well, bit of a mic drop moment. This is what people have been saying all along. It's like, first it's this, which is a stepping stone and seems like an easy target to go for. And then it escalates. It's never just trans kids. It goes further and further and further. And it's not just trans people either. Anybody who's cis and LGBT plus in any way who is transphobic, wow, that's like, what's the phrase? Like eating your own face or something? I don't know. They're just hurting themselves as well in the long run. It's absolutely ridiculous. But this is a big reason why the history of trans people seems lacking and is really somewhat hidden, because all of that research, all of that information that was built upon and could have been used to build upon further and further and further was destroyed, and everything had to start from scratch much later on. And it put the information and it put levels of acceptance and representation and understanding and everything so far back. And these people today who are trying to take away trans rights don't even know that happened, or will try and deny that that happened. And it's just infuriating. Absolutely infuriating. I'm sorry. This is a good trans anatomy because I think the information that was said about the history and what happened is important to put out there. But obviously, it's always been hard, but I think particularly now, it's difficult to address positive things and accurate things without also addressing the negative at the minute. So yes, overall, I do still see this video as a positive thing, but I'm sorry that it's not as lighthearted and feel good as it perhaps used to be. But we've definitely got some of that coming up. Like, right now. Look at this. Trans model in a Dutch store. Love to see it. Look, underwear model, trans dude, scars out and everything. This kind of representation is really important. This is what like bigots act like. They're like, oh my God, there was one trans person in an advert, they're taking over. No, it's just because we're showing the broad range of ways there are to be human, and trans men buy underwear. So, you know, sometimes it's nice to see the occasional trans model. It's like for razor companies, like shaving razor things. It's really nice to see trans representation in those spaces as well, because it's so rare. A lot of the time, like in advertising, it's so hard to find like a full spectrum of diversity, and people complain so much at the first hint of representation, but it's so important to do. And I think it really humanizes and normalizes that trans people are just people, and that trans bodies are just bodies, and trans people buy underwear. Okay, my transgender son was nervous about telling our extended family. His grandparents picked us up from the airport with his chosen name on the shirt. Oh, that's so cute. In case you want a good happy cry for pride. Oh my God, Cole's grandpa. I'm assuming that says Cole's grandma. Like Pog grandparents. I love this. I love this so much. Because sometimes people don't always know exactly what to say or what to do, and just something that is so clearly supportive. You don't even need to say anything. Just showing up in that t-shirt, and that kid is instantly going to be like, oh, thank God, this is amazing. It's like I've heard of parents who got their kid's birth name tattooed on them when they were born, and their kid grew up and was like, hey, I'm trans and I'm changing my name. And so the parents changed the tattoo. And there was this one post, actually it might be coming up. I'm not going to say what it is because it might come up, but then if it doesn't come up, you'll never know what it is. I'm sorry. This could be a cliffhanger that is permanent, or it could be very, very temporary. You'll have to wait and see. But this is so cute. Dragon Age, the Veil Guard will include customizable top surgery scars. Oh, that's cool. Look at that. I mean, they are very neat top surgery scars, and those nipples are perfect. I would like that surgeon's number, or I would have 13. No, I'm happy with my top surgery results. What am I talking about? But yes, I would promote this top surgeon's number. Transgender gamers rejoice. An early look at the character creation system in Dragon Age the Veil Guard includes plenty of options for players to give their character top surgery scars. I want to Google this. Did I play like Dragon Age Inquisition? Is that a game? I think I've played that one. I potentially have, or maybe I've just heard of it. I don't know. But this is Dragon Age the Veil Guard. What do you want to do? Trans options. So what does this say? Here's exactly how the transgender and non-binary options in Dragon Age the Veil Guard work. So your identity and pronouns are completely separate on character creation. This kind of reminds me of The Sims when it did a similar thing. A similar thing. Pun. We can say intended. I'll take credit for that terribleness. I'm sure there was some very red-faced, angry, shouting bigots.
Sorry, did you want to get immersed in our world? Yeah, well, guess what? Pronouns!
There will be the inevitable bigot, obviously, but I do really like it when games try to be inclusive, because it's not even an option you need to pick. If this is not something that you want to be in a game, if this is not who you are, if this is not an identity you have, then you don't need to do anything. You just choose your character and you don't choose this option. Voila, that's how it works. But it's nice and inclusive for the people who would want to choose it. I really appreciated when The Sims included it as well. The hostility Toxford continues with quiet fury is fueled by intemperate language on social media around the trans discussion that's opened the door to people thinking it's now fair to have a general go at diversity, that the world is too woke. How can the world be too woke? I don't know how you can be too woke. Woke means being awake to the dangers that are around you. Mental health within the LGBTQ community is not good, and that's not because you're not comfortable with who you are, it's the way society treats you. Absolutely. She is especially angry by how many radical feminists attack trans people, and it's in bunny quotes because they're not feminists. How could you be so white and privileged and heterosexual and never marginalized in your life, yet you decide to punch down on people? She is just saying pure truths. I say they fear, for example, that trans women will occupy safe spaces meant for women, such as public lavatories. I don't get this. I'm in my 45th year in show business, traveling the country touring. I've been to every service station toilet in the country. Everyone has a sign up saying male cleaners in attendance. I don't recall anybody saying, we need to group up against these male cleaners. Why would someone dress as a woman when they could just pick up a cleaning cloth? If it really bothers you, there's a toilet someplace else. Go there. Shut up. Let's join together and fight stuff that actually needs fighting. Why are they talking about this when women in Afghanistan are not allowed to sing or to look a man in the face? Who is benefiting from all of this? The patriarchy. It makes me so sad. This is so accurate. This whole shit towards trans women and trans people generally is an entire distraction point and means that we're not actually discussing genuine shit things that are happening in the world. Trans people are not causing anybody any harm. There's nothing wrong with being trans. Trans people are not, as a collective, massive dangerous? I'm not saying there aren't bad eggs within the trans community, as there are in any community, marginalized or not, but as a group, why are we fighting against trans people? Why are we blaming trans women for the things that predatory cis men are doing? And why are people calling themselves feminists and saying that they're being trans in the fight for feminist rights and standing up for women, but then they don't give a shit when it comes to things like abortion rights and women around the world who are being greatly oppressed? No, they only care about trans women. Their feminism begins and ends with being transphobic. That's not feminism. And there are some very well-known transphobes who completely try to hide their transphobia behind being feminist, and they try to use that as a reason of like,
I'm not a bad person, I'm just being a feminist, and I think this is the best way to be a feminist.
they are so vocal about being transphobic and so tumbleweed silent when there are actual things going on in the world that are going against women's rights and that are oppressing women. Nothing to say when trans people aren't involved, but when actual feminism is needed and it's necessary to stand up for women and women's rights, they only care when they can bash on a trans woman. That's it. It's their hobby. A new study found low rates of regret and high levels of satisfaction among youth who access gender-affirming medical care. Shocking. This is literally what trans people have been saying forever. It's nice to have the study. I'm not being sarcastic about the study existing. I'm just like, it's so common sense. We've known for ages that gender-affirming care is the route to take with trans people, and there is age-appropriate gender-affirming care accessible for trans youth that then shifts as people grow older. You know, funny that. There is a need to improve the evidence base for gender-affirming medical care provided to adolescents, including the experiences of those who have received this care. So the objective of this study was to examine rates of satisfaction, regret, and continuity of care in adolescents who receive puberty blockers and or gender-affirming hormones as part of gender-affirming medical care. Notice the distinct lack of surgery, because kids are not having surgery. Well, trans kids are not having trans-related surgeries. Conclusions and relevance. The findings suggest that youth accessing puberty blockers and hormones as part of gender-affirming care tend to be satisfied with and not regretful of that care several years later. While regret was rare, these experiences need to be better understood. The regret rate for trans-related healthcare and for transitioning is so low when we look at the medical field in general. We're talking about around 1% regret rate for trans-related medical interventions such as surgeries. When we look at the surgical regret rate, generally 14%. There's nobody setting up protests or dedicating an entire social media profile to saying no more surgery, look at the regret rate. But yet there are people doing the same thing, saying trans people shouldn't access gender-affirming care because look at these detransitioners who we've now manipulated to be transphobic. Like 1%. It doesn't mean that 1% doesn't matter, but why would that 1% impact what happens to the 99%? Different approaches are needed. We need to recognize that gender-affirming care is the appropriate action for trans healthcare, and also recognize that on that very minimal regret rate, those people need their own type of support as well. Just like if somebody had a knee operation, which has a significantly higher than 1% regret rate, and they regret it, they will need some support in that regret if that knee operation did not work for them. But no, when it comes to trans things, it's like, oh,
We found 2 people that regret out of this 200, so therefore I think that 198 should have been denied, despite the fact that they're clearly much happier and have lower levels of depression and anxiety. I think because 2 people regretted, none of the 200 should ever have accessed gender-affirming care.
it just sounds illogical. It sounds dumb. Going on a date with a trans guy, would it be wrong to call him Big Dog as a greeting? I mean, it's an interesting choice for a greeting, but if that's how you would typically greet a date with a man, then dating a trans man wouldn't be any different. I am a 24-year-old man, bisexual. I've dated mostly women or trans women in my life, so I'm not really good at interacting with guys, but recently I hit it off with a trans guy off of Bumble. He doesn't present masculine, but does not refer to himself as anything other than male, and I want to honor that and give him the full guy-to-guy experience. I'm thinking of dapping him up and saying something like, "What's up, big dog? How's it going? I'm Rats Matt," or something. Would that be too guyish? Any advice is welcome. On one hand, this is very sweet because somebody's really thinking about it. I totally see if you've not done those kind of interactions before, you're just like, I don't want to offend somebody. But I think the best approach to take is if you would have this approach with any other guy, if this is how you would interact with another guy, that trans guy is just another guy, so go for it. This could as likely fall flat with a cis guy as it could with a trans guy. But I'm wondering, maybe they're just like, would that be offensive? But I don't see why not. I think where you go into the realm of slightly uncomfortable is starting to treat trans guys as like this kind of special, odd, different, don't know what to say or do with you kind of guy. But just like, trans men are men, so just go for it as if you were talking to any other guy, because that's what you're doing. I was sharing bathrooms with trans women 25 years ago. You couldn't go to a club in NYC in the 90s without seeing trans women and drag queens in the ladies' room. You know what happened? Those horrible, scary scary, dangerous people fixed my eyeliner, complimented my clothes, gave makeup tips, helped me when I was drunk and praying to the porcelain god, got me into cabs safely, laughed with me, danced with me, and made me feel safe among real predators. Cis men. Oh, it's so frustrating because like I can see the brick wall that these bigots have about being like,
No, it's trans women. Trans women are the problem. Get trans women out women's bathrooms. And it's like,
no, they're not. And I really cannot wait for the day that people start listening a bit more and being like, wow, trans people, firstly, trans people have existed forever. We've already established this in this video. That means that trans people have been using bathrooms of their correct gender. So trans men using men's bathrooms, trans women using women's bathrooms, and generally women's spaces, and the same for trans men using men's spaces forever. And like you probably have interacted, seen, shared a space with so many trans people, or at least one trans person in your lifetime and never known, and nothing bad ever happened. And this has been happening for more than decades, and literally it's only in like the last 5 or so years that there's this escalating issue that bigots have with trans people, particularly trans women, using the correctly gendered spaces, so trans women in women's spaces. There's actually evidence showing that there is no increased risk to cis women with trans women using women's bathrooms, and that cis men are not using this as a way to more easily access women's spaces because they'll just walk in there anyway. There is no special lock on these facilities. Cis men who wanted to be predatory are not going to dress up as women to access these spaces. They're just going to go in, or they're not going to do it in those spaces because they don't have to. And we are completely detracting from that threat. And we're completely forgetting that predatory cis men are the problem here. Absolutely ridiculous. Seriously, everybody who's watching this video who would have an issue with sharing a bathroom with a trans woman, you probably already have, and nothing bad has ever happened. Because trans women are not predators. Trans women are not dangerous. You're just an asshole. Oh, Chappell Roan. I would not be here without trans girls, so just know that pop music is thinking about you and cares about you, and I'm trying my best to stand up for you in every way that I can. The Grammys was very, very queer. It was nice to see. There was a lot of trans support that I could see going on. Yay. We just had Lady Gaga. Trans people are not invisible. Trans people deserve love. The queer community deserves to be lifted up. Oh, and another one from Chappell Roan. Trans people have always existed and they will forever exist, and they will never, no matter what happens, take trans joy away. And then the bit about not being here without trans women. Now, this is how you use your platform. We love you, Chappell. Pop music owes you a debt of gratitude. It is nice to see when you kind of feel powerless about what's happening generally, that there are still people out there who will stand up on a stage like this and be like, no, trans rights are human rights. Trans people matter. Trans people exist, and trans people deserve acceptance, respect, love, all of the positive things that everybody deserves in this world. Well, there are some exceptions. Bigots. They can just rot.
I don't wish ill of her, I just wish her to shut up.
That's it for today's exploration into good trans anatomy. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you do want to go check out Squarespace, then go click the link in the description box. And yeah, thank you so much. You can also go leave a comment and think about liking and subscribing if you want to, but no pressure. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Again, I will see you next time. Much love. Bye.